Hi, you're watching AC's 8-Bit Zone. This is part 2 of a series where I'm going to repair this CoCo-2. So in part 1 we set the stage where one of the channel subscribers has a CoCo-2 that he's had for many years, and he actually has two CoCo-2s with a very similar problem. He sent one of them to me and we're repairing it right here on AC's 8-Bit Zone. So there's a video display problem, and if you want to see part 1, if you haven't already caught that, I'll link that just up above. But basically in part 1 we talked about some of the theory of the main board and the CoCo-2. We took everything apart and we did some voltage rail testing. Well, the voltages are all okay at all the IC chips, so that's good. And in this part 2 we're going to dive in and find out exactly what's wrong with the CoCo-2. So sit tight and enjoy while we get started. So I have to admit something. When I first received the CoCo-2 in the mail, I put it out on the bench and said, I wonder what's wrong with this thing. So I actually started tearing into it, checking this and checking that and flying all around. I probably looked like a mad person. And I pretty quickly worked down to where I thought the problem was. And it turns out that's where the problem's going to lie. But in the process of that, I realized that that would make for a terrible video. The last thing you want to see is someone just randomly changing chips and trying all kinds of things. And I didn't get all of it videoed anyway. So in this part 2, we're going to really step through as if you were troubleshooting a truly unknown problem. And I mean, to be honest, this was unknown to me at first. Some people might be more familiar with the symptoms and might say, oh, I know exactly what that is. But in this video, we're going to methodically step through how you would troubleshoot many different kinds of problems on a CoCo-2 main board. Okay, here we go. So thinking about what's going on here in the corrupted display, I'm really suspicious of the synchronous address multiplexer. Is it failing and not refreshing RAM? So one of the jobs, probably the main job of the SAM, is to provide RAS and CAS cycles to keep refreshing the DRAM so that it doesn't lose its memory. And a secondary function is to provide decoding logic for chip selects. So I'm very suspicious of the SAM and his helper chips, the NOR gates and the 138 decoder. I think I'm also suspicious of the video display generator, and of course there's always RAM. There may even be something wrong with the data bus where one of these ROMs is misoperating, and maybe it's stepping on the data bus, so we're going to have to check that as well. Definitely the data buffers need to be working, and the decoding logic needs to be right. Here's what the screen looks like right now. So just the same as it was before, a blank green screen. And this gives me the impression that the processor is getting to the point where it's doing the clear screen, and it's just before it's trying to generate the welcome prompt, and that text doesn't seem to be making it to here, so we're not getting to that point. So, but it does seem like the processor must be running. But anyway, if the screen changes much from this, I'll point that out. But I just wanted to keep it in the background so I can keep the corner of my eye on it. Well, everything starts with the 6809, so let's start here. We know we have VCC 5 volts. Let's observe the reset line as we power on the CoCo. Pin 37, and powering on now. Okay, reset is coming up. And it's not on camera, but I do have the green screen, the normal plain green screen with a little bit of noise in it. And next, let's check the pin 3 and 4 interrupts. Make sure we don't have any active low interrupts. There's 3, not active. 4, not active. Halt pin 40, make sure we're not being held in halt, that's inactive. The NMI on pin 2, that's inactive. Let's take a look at the clocks. We need to have both clock pins. We need to have clocks that are 90 degrees out of phase. Oh, I believe it's Q and E on 35 and 34. 35 and 34. Okay, this looks good. On the top there we have pin 35, QN, and on the bottom channel yellow is EN. So Q above the E. That looks good. So the Q is leading the E by 90 degrees. Clock looks good. Frequency is right around 890 kilohertz. I believe that's good. Okay, no problem with the clock. And let's scan through this address bus, starting with A0. That's on pin 9. Okay, A0 looking pretty good. A1, it's pin 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. Continuing on up, this will be address 13 on pin 23. I'm sorry, on pin 21. Address 14 on 22, and address 15 on 23. Okay, all the address pins were working. Read write. That is on pin 32. Pin 32, that's the read write pulse. That looks like it's working. Okay, let's walk the data bus, starting with D0 on pin 31. D0. Okay, looking good. Now we're going to walk down to pin 30, 29, 28, 27. Ooh, what's up with pin 27? Okay, I wasn't on it solidly. 27, 26, 25, 24, and 23. Oh, 23 is not data. Data ended at 24. That's data bit 7. Data pins look very much alive, so that's good. Looks like the 6809 is at least trying to work correctly. Okay, let's move over to the 6883 synchronous address multiplexer, the SAM chip, also known as the 74LS783. Starting with the top left corner of the schematic symbol anyway, that's pin 16. Just make sure we have address being received at this part. Pin 17, 18, 19. Looking good so far. 20, 21. Looking good. 22, 23, 24. We're getting address pins. We're getting address signals, no problem. Okay, back to pin 4, pin 3, 2, and 1. That gets us to A11, I believe it is. Now A12 on pin 39, 38, 37, 36. Address is making it. Let's check pin 15, the read write. Pin 15, yep. Looks like it did on the other end. Let's just make sure we're getting E and Q clocks. Pin 13 is the Q, 14 is the E. We have both clocks. Okay, let's check for V clock output. On pin 7. That's that guy. Okay. 3.58 megahertz. 3.58 megahertz approximately. That's good. Okay, let's check memory addresses. MA0 through MA7. That's the multiplexed address on pins 28 up to 35. 28. Looks good. 29. Ooh. What's going on with 29? Okay, there it was. I was off. 30. 31. 32. 33. 34. 35. Okay, all working. RAS and CAS. We definitely need those. That would be on pins 12 and 11. Okay, I believe that is pin 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Yep, 12 and 11. Okay, RAS and CAS are strobing. Good. Okay, then 10 is the write signal, active low. Okay, that's working. All these signals drive the RAM bank and keep the refresh alive and also select the address of the RAM. As I was mentioning earlier, the select lines that come out of the SAM are sent over to these NOR gates and the 74LS138. If this decoder is malfunctioning, we could have all kinds of decoding problems. So, you know, if there's a dead output, or if something's stuck or glitching, then all kinds of havoc could be caused. So let's check, just make sure we're seeing toggling on pin 10 and 4 of U10. Okay, so pins 4 and 10 on U10. Here's pin 4. Okay, that's low. 4, 4, 4. Okay, no, I was not on it. Okay, so it's toggling. Good. And that's a 14 pin package. Pins 8, 9, and 10. 10. Okay, 10 is low. That is driven by pins 8 and 9. What are 8 and 9 doing? Okay, 9 is toggling. 10 is always high. Okay, if 10 is always high, then the NOR gate output would be always low. Okay, but that's 8, 9, 10, and it is always low. Why is pin 8 always high? Pin 8, I believe that's the read-write signal. 8 is read write. I believe that's read high, write low. So that would say we're doing a lot of reading right now. We're not really doing any writing. Now earlier we saw the read write toggling. Let's go back to that. So we looked at the processor, pin 32. Okay, now it's not toggling. I'm pretty sure that when I looked at that earlier, I thought we saw activity on read write. That's a little bit curious. 32 is always high. Let's cycle power off and back on. Okay, there was some high and low activity there. Let's press reset. Okay, so there is initial activity showing us that the read-write signal can work. However, it eventually goes solid high. Okay, so read-write is not broken and the NOR gate was working. So that looks okay, sort of. Although if things were working correctly, we would expect read-write activity to continue, but maybe something's getting corrupted before along the way, and we're getting stuck because of corrupt data. So I mentioned the U11 decoder, decoding pins 1, 2, and 3. Let's just see that we have some activity there and make sure that we don't have one of those 8 outputs stuck low or one not going low that should be going low. The Y1 and Y2 output selects on pin 14 and 13 select the ROMs. So one would expect to see some activity on selecting the ROM chips at this time. So let's look for that. Y0 is a RAM buffer. That's the 244 RAM buffer. So whenever RAM is getting read, we would expect that Y0 should be going low. So in fact, let's look at that now. We know the read signal is active, so we should be seeing some occasions when pin 15, Y0, okay, we're looking at pin 15, Y0. Okay, we have activity there, so we are selecting the RAM buffer. We'll walk down to pin 14. Okay, that's good. 13, that looks good. 12, I don't know if this would toggle or not. Okay, but it is toggling. 12. 11 and 10, select the PIAs. Those would certainly be polled for keyboard input and other. Okay, so that's pin 11. That is good. Pin 10, PIA1 select. Okay, also being toggled. And 9. I don't recall what 9, the function of 9 is. It is alive. Let's see, what is pin 9 selecting? 9. Oh, that's a SCS active low. On the expansion connector or the cartridge connector. Is that SCS select cartridge slot? Not sure what that acronym stands for, but that is the cartridge slot. Okay, so the 138 is is basically working. So I was sort of suspicious of it. I thought maybe, and it still could have a glitchy output where it's not selecting the chips as it should. So it's not completely out of the woods, but at least it's not a dead chip. In this first pass, I'm really just looking for completely dead signals or dead ICs that are altogether not working. But so far, everything's at least toggling and looking decently good with good low and high levels. I think next, so we see the processor, we see the synchronous address multiplexer. Everything's looking fairly normal. Let's check RAM. Let's start with, we already know that it has VCC. We saw read-write toggling. Let's go back to that. Pin 10. Boy, the SAM IC is getting quite warm. Okay, write is high. Again, 11 is CAS. 12 is RAS. They're still functioning. Let's look at the VDG. I thought I had checked that, but I was throwing myself off a little bit thinking I had already checked that. Let's go ahead and walk around the VDG. Definitely need to know whether these big 40-pin chips are completely dead or seeming to work before we move into anything else. Okay, so starting in the upper left corner of the chip on pin 39, CSS. Don't see any activity there. Okay, CSS is probably one of those mode select pins that the PIA is controlling. So I don't know that it's a problem if that's low, but CSS is always low. Okay, we'll move to 38. That would be the horizontal sync. Okay, we're getting pulses there. Let's just see what the interval is. Okay, just about every 64 microseconds. That sounds about right. Okay, so we're getting 38 horizontal sync, 37 FS sync. Okay, we're getting some toggling there. Let's see what the rate of that is. About every 60 at a 60 hertz rate, so that sounds good. Sounds like a frame or one vertical frame. 37 FS, I see activity there. 36, that's low. 36, I don't know what pin 36 is. Looks like it's a no connect pin. I don't believe that's implemented on the chip. 35, okay, we have what looks like a clock. No, 35. Okay, 35 is A/G. We have activity there. 34 is AS. Okay, we have activity. 33 is the clock output for the NTSC clock. 33. Okay, that's the clock, 33. Looks good, 3.58 megahertz. 32 INV. Okay, looks like that's always high. pin 32 is one of the DRAM data lines that's latched by the 273. Okay, that's interesting. I'm not seeing that toggle. Is that toggling over on pin 6 of the 273? No, it looks the same. Okay, so that signal is always high. That's data pin 6. Okay, so let's walk the DD7 down to 0, looking for data bus activity on the video side of the 273. Let's start with DD bus bit 0. We're starting from the bottom, DD0. Okay, so we have 0, DD1 on pin 4, DD2 on pin 5, DD3 on pin 6, DD4 on pin 7, DD5 on pin 8. All looking good so far. DD6 on pin 2, stuck high. That doesn't seem right. And then finally DD7. So DD7 appears good. So just that DD6 looks a little strange there on pin 2. And again, that comes from the 273 latch, pin 6. Let's go look at that one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pin 6. So it's low there. It comes from the other side, the left side of the 273, which would be MD6 or pin 7. Okay, that looks very bad. That's bad. Pin 7 of U5, the 273 latch. That comes straight from the RAM bank. MD6. That would be a RAM chip that holds bit 6 of the data bus. I believe this is bit 0, or MD0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. U20, pin 14. Right there's, yeah, it looks the same trashiness on this end, on the source end, right out of the RAM input. Okay, let's walk these RAMs. So now let's walk pin 14 of each RAM, starting with bit 0 of the data bus. Okay, there is activity on bit 0. I see some highs and lows, and I see some in the middle. If both RAS and CAS are inactive, then the RAM's not driving. I could imagine it being in the middle of the rail, in between logic low and high, but let's just walk. So that's D0. There's D1, that looks the same. D2, that looks the same. D3, that looks the same. D4, that looks the same. D5, that looks a little bit different. Back to 4. That's D4. D5, I mean, it's toggling, but look at the difference, the different high levels. Something is a little bit different looking about D5. Okay, D6. That one is dead. I think we have a bad RAM chip for D7 there, U20. And D7, the MSB. Right. Okay, let's do this. So when the RAM is selected, there's going to be a RAS signal first, or a row select, followed by a column select. And when the column select goes active low, then we should get RAM output. So column select is pin 15. Okay, and it's sent to all 8 of the RAM chips. So pin 15 is the same for all of them. So let's trigger on the column select pin 15 and trigger on it going low. So when 15 goes low, you'd like to see data emitted within 200 nanoseconds. I think this is 200 nanosecond RAM. You'd like to have data on pin 14 within 200 nanoseconds. So here's back to the U14 chip, data 0. Okay, and you can see that within 50 or 60 nanoseconds or so of the trigger there, where CAS falls low, we have data. The data could be different levels before the column select, but it either goes high or low after the falling edge of column select of CAS. Okay, so CAS falls low, and then data bit 0 is either definitely low or high after that. And then it's released when CAS goes high, and you can see that the data sometimes floats up to an undriven level in the middle. Okay, let's move from D0 to D1. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 looks a little funny. 6 looks bad. And 7. Something's different about 5, but not altogether terrible. But 6 is bad. Okay, this is definitely a problem. Let's get the solder sucker out and replace this U20 RAM. Okay, so the U20 RAM chip seems to be the problem. So I really tried to step through this in as orderly a way as possible, in hopes that this technique could be applied to many different kinds of problems that we could run into on the CoCo-2. So I hope this has been helpful to you, and thanks for hanging in there with me. If you're still watching at this point, thumbs up to you. Thanks for hanging in there. And we're going to go to part 3, and it's going to be up really soon because I already have all the footage. I'm just going to do a final edit on it and get it up there in just a few days. So until next time, see you then.